Saraceni, the favourite for the title. Missed out 2 years ago. She's okay on the board, miles behind. Oh, wow! Oh, wow! Oh, that could be huge. Oh, yes! She's matured brilliantly. Absolutely nailed it on the board. Equalled her PB in the first round with 14.08. Saraceni's on fire. Oh, yes! That is absolutely superb. A championship record that has stood for 24 years.
You've seen her on the track, but do you really know Erika Saraceni? To the world, she's a rising champion. Fast, fearless, unstoppable. But behind the medals lies sacrifice, setbacks, and scars few ever see. This isn't just the story of an athlete. It's the fight of a girl who refused to quit. And once you know the truth, you'll never look at her the same way again. This is the untold story of Erika Saraceni, the roots of a talent. Erika Saraceni was born in Milan, in a neighborhood most of the world will never hear about. A place of simple homes and quiet streets, where ambition often bowed to reality. Life there wasn't measured in trophies or records, but in hard work and survival, in families doing what they could to get by. Yet it was here, in the heart of this modest community, that Erika Saraceni took her first steps. The world outside might not have expected greatness from this little girl, but the very rhythm of her hometown, the grit, the sacrifice, the unshakable bonds of family, gave her something far more valuable than privilege. It gave her resilience, it gave her fire, and that fire would one day carry her from forgotten streets to arenas where the whole world would finally know her name. As a child, Erika was energetic, restless in the way only kids with untapped ambition can be. She wasn't content sitting indoors or quietly observing. She needed movement, needed to feel her body in motion, running across fields, chasing friends through narrow streets, racing against her siblings at dusk. All of it felt natural, like she was doing what she was born to do. Her family often laughed at the way she turned every moment into a competition. Even if it was carrying groceries from the car or finishing chores, Erika's instinct was to test herself, to win, to push a little harder than anyone expected. That stubborn spark, so clear even in her earliest years, was the first glimpse of the fighter she would become. But her drive wasn't just playful rivalry. There was also an intensity behind her determination, a refusal to back down when things didn't go her way. If she fell, she stood up faster. If she lost, she demanded another chance. Her parents sometimes worried about her temper when she was frustrated, but they quickly realized that it wasn't anger. It was a burning hunger to improve. That hunger, once directed, would become her greatest weapon. Her first true encounter with sport was unplanned, almost accidental. At school, teachers noticed her ability to outrun her classmates during games of tag or sprint races in physical education. While others tired quickly, Erika seemed to thrive the longer she moved. She had a stride that was raw, unpolished, but powerful. She could read her own body in a way most kids never thought about. A teacher suggested she try athletics more seriously, and that invitation opened a door Erika hadn't even known was there. When she stepped onto a real track for the first time, the sensation was different from the playful running she was used to. It was structured, timed, measured, a challenge that gave shape to her natural energy. From that moment, athletics stopped being just an activity. It became a passion. She loved the discipline of it, the way every small improvement could be tracked, celebrated, and built upon. The stopwatch didn't lie, and that honesty appealed to her. Training sessions became her favorite part of the week, not because they were easy, but because they tested her. The harder it became, the more she wanted to conquer it. Her friends sometimes drifted away toward hobbies that allowed more freedom, but Erika stayed. She wasn't chasing fun anymore, she was chasing progress. Her family played a quiet but vital role in these early years. They didn't always understand the intricacies of athletics, but they recognized the light in Erika's eyes when she came home from training. exhausted yet smiling. They sacrificed their own time and resources to make sure she could travel to meets, buy the right shoes, and continue chasing this growing dream. For them, it wasn't just about sport. It was about giving their daughter the chance to build something extraordinary from her passion. What defined Erika in those early years was not her talent alone, but her resilience. She wasn't always the fastest, not always the strongest, but she was always the one who refused to stop. While others gave up when training became too hard, Erika dug deeper. While others treated defeats as endings, she treated them as lessons. Her ambition was evident long before she won her first medal, long before her name appeared on any leaderboard. Those who knew her as a child could already sense that she was wired differently. She didn't need the roar of a crowd to fuel her. She had her own fire. That fire, born in the quiet streets of her hometown and shaped by the values of her family, would carry her through every challenge yet to come. Long before the world knew who she was, before fans celebrated her as an athlete, Erika Saraceni was already fighting battles against limits, against doubt, against the idea that she should ever settle for less. It was in those roots, deep and unshakable, that the fighter in her was born, discovering her strength. The shift from playful afternoons spent racing through the streets of her hometown to the structure of formal training did not happen all at once for Erika Saraceni. At first, running was simply joy. It was the rush of wind against her face, the laughter of competing with her siblings, the thrill of testing herself against whoever was willing to line up beside her. But as she grew, that joy began to take on another layer. Teachers at school had already noticed her unusual speed, the way she could outlast her classmates without seeming to tire. What started as innocent encouragement soon became an invitation to something greater, a place at a local athletics club. For Erika, it was both intimidating and exciting. She would no longer be the fastest kid in the schoolyard. She would be standing alongside others who were just as talented, if not more. It was a new kind of challenge, one that would either expose her or ignite her. Her first steps onto the track as a trainee were awkward. The drills were foreign, the expectations stricter, and for the first time, she was made to confront her rawness. But that same stubborn streak she had shown as a child refused to let her quit. Every correction from her coach became a target to master, every mistake a lesson she replayed in her mind until she got it right. She quickly caught the eye of her first real mentor, a coach who saw past her inexperience and into the fire that drove her. He told her family that Erika had something rare, not just speed, but the mental hunger to keep going long after others had given up. Formal training also brought structure into her life. Her days began earlier, with stretches and warm-ups before school, followed by homework crammed between evening sessions at the track. While other teenagers filled their weekends with friends or outings, Erika's schedule revolved around training blocks and competitions. There were nights she came home exhausted, her legs heavy from drills, her mind still buzzing with the thought of upcoming races. Balancing school and athletics was a constant struggle. She knew her education mattered, but her heart was on the track, where every lap seemed to whisper that she was meant for more. Her teachers were supportive, but the workload sometimes left her overwhelmed, forcing her to stay up late, books in hand, while her muscles still ached from training. Her first competitions were a mix of exhilaration and nerves. Standing at the starting line, waiting for the signal, she felt her entire body tense with anticipation. Sometimes she faltered, her nerves getting the better of her, leading to shaky starts or rushed finishes. Other times, the pressure seemed to sharpen her focus, propelling her forward with a determination that surprised even herself. Winning was intoxicating, but losing hit hard. She didn't yet have the experience to understand that defeats were part of the process. After races where she failed to meet expectations, she often sat alone, replaying every mistake, feeling as though she had let her family, her coach, and herself down. But those low moments became fuel. She was learning not just how to run, but how to fight through setbacks. The struggles of her youth were not just emotional but practical. Athletics was not a sport with endless funding in her country, and resources were scarce. Sometimes she trained with worn-out shoes, sometimes with equipment that had long since seen better days. Traveling to competitions meant sacrifices from her parents, who quietly cut corners in their own lives to make sure Erika had the chance to chase her dream. That knowledge added to the pressure she carried. Every race felt bigger because it wasn't just her effort on the line. It was her family's sacrifices too. Injuries began to appear as her training intensified. The sprains, the pulled muscles, the aches that lingered longer than they should have. Each one tested her patience. Sitting out of practices or competitions was torture. In those moments, doubts crept in. Was she built for this? Did she have what it took to withstand the toll the sport demanded? She sometimes questioned whether she was strong enough to keep going, especially when classmates or friends seemed to live easier, freer lives without the weight of competition pressing on their shoulders. Yet, through all the frustration and doubt, Erika discovered something more important than speed or medals. She discovered her strength. It wasn't just in her legs or her lungs, but in her ability to return after setbacks, to keep training when her body screamed for rest, to believe in herself when doubt seemed louder than hope. That strength was not given to her. It was forged, piece by piece, in the hard days of youth where giving up might have been easier, but never an option. By the time her teenage years were in full swing, Erika wasn't just another athlete in training. She was becoming someone her coaches, her peers, and even her rivals began to notice. There was something undeniable about her presence on the track, something that spoke not only of talent, but of the relentless will behind it. The girl who once raced through her neighborhood streets was now racing toward a future that demanded everything she had to give, and she was ready to give it.
I'm the one that introduced you to the you right now. Oh my God, that bitch back.
Rising on the track. There comes a moment in every athlete's journey when the hours of unseen work begin to translate into something undeniable. For Erika Saraceni, that moment arrived on the track, where her results started to shift from promising to remarkable. She had always been fast, always been driven, but now she was beginning to dominate competitions in a way that forced people to pay attention. At junior meets, where the air buzzed with the nervous energy of teenagers chasing their first real victories, Erika began to separate herself. Her stride was cleaner, her composure sharper, her determination visible even before the starter's pistol cracked through the air. She didn't just run to win races, she ran as though she had something to prove to the world, and more importantly, to herself. Her breakthrough performances didn't come easily. They were the product of mornings spent running drills before the sun came up, of evenings that ended not with rest, but with more conditioning, stretching, and recovery. While her friends enjoyed the freedom of adolescence, Erika's schedule revolved around the track. She measured her progress not in weekends spent at parties, but in tenths of a second shaved from her times. At first, the sacrifices felt lonely, but when she stood on the podium with a medal around her neck, the validation made every choice worth it. It wasn't just the medal itself, but the quiet knowledge that the hours of struggle were building something greater. The turning point came when she began competing at the national level. What had once been about racing classmates or local rivals now became about standing against the best in her country. Those races carried a different kind of pressure. The stadiums were louder, the competition fiercer, and the stakes higher. Erika remembered her first big national meet vividly. The crowd seemed endless, the track itself like a stage. As she stood at the starting line, heart pounding, she could feel the weight of expectation pressing against her chest. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in. What if she wasn't ready? But then the gun fired, and instinct took over. Every lap, every stride, every bead of sweat she had left on the training ground came rushing back, pushing her forward until she crossed the line ahead of competitors who had been racing longer and training with more resources. That victory marked the beginning of her transformation from a name on a start list to one people began to circle as a threat.
On lane 5 for Poland, Olivia Kostelza, Maya Wozniak, Anastasia Pusk, and Lena Palecka. On lane 6 for Turkey.
With recognition came new challenges. She was no longer the underdog with nothing to lose. Coaches, media, and fans began to see her as one to watch, a rising figure in athletics who could carry national pride on her shoulders. It was flattering, but it also changed the way she experienced the sport. Every race became more than a test of speed. It became a test of composure, of her ability to deliver under the spotlight. Training sessions grew more intense, her coaches pushing her beyond limits she hadn't even known existed. She learned that talent was only the foundation. What mattered most was grit, the willingness to show up day after day, even when exhaustion lingered in her legs and her mind begged her to stop. Her family continued to be her anchor. They reminded her that recognition was a gift, but also a responsibility. Erika carried that with pride, though the pressure sometimes weighed heavy. Every time she lined up in her national kit, she felt both the honor and the burden of representing something larger than herself. Victories were celebrated not just by her, but by the community that had raised her. Yet the flip side was brutal. Losses were no longer private disappointments but public events, dissected and debated by those who watched from the stands or read the results online. Despite the pressure, Erika thrived. Her discipline set her apart, and soon she was being mentioned in conversations about the future of athletics in her country. Journalists wrote about her determination, coaches praised her work ethic, and younger athletes began to look to her as proof that success was possible if you were willing to pay the price. The girl who had once run barefoot through her hometown streets was now being spoken of as a national hope, a symbol of resilience and potential.
Erika Saraceni, salto triplo. Giuro di lottare con ogni mia energia e con assoluta lealtà, nel pieno rispetto della mia integrità fisica e morale, per l'onore della maglia azzurra che è il simbolo sportivo dell'Italia.
She knew the grind would only intensify, but she embraced it. Long hours under the sun, lonely sessions when her body screamed for rest, and races where the margin between victory and defeat came down to a fraction of seconds and centimeters. All of it became part of her identity. Erika wasn't just rising on the track, she was rising in life, learning that greatness was not defined by natural talent alone, but by the willingness to endure the pain that came before the glory. And with every race she ran, every barrier she broke, she stepped closer to becoming more than just an athlete. She was becoming a name her country would not forget.
And now the favourite, Erika Saraceni, the only one in the field to have gone over 14 metres. 7 wins out of 9.
Fame, setbacks, and the big stage. Fame did not arrive for Erika Saraceni all at once. It crept in slowly, almost quietly, before exploding into something she could no longer escape. At first, it was a handful of reporters who wanted to know more about the young athlete who was breaking records no one expected. Then it became interviews, photographs, and features on national television. Before long, her face was appearing on the websites of sports networks. Her name repeated by commentators who were suddenly labeling her the future of Italian athletics. For a girl who had once been running through the streets of her hometown, unnoticed and uncelebrated, the shift was dizzying. On one hand, it was exhilarating. She was being recognized, respected, even idolized. On the other, the spotlight carried shadows that few could see. Behind the interviews and smiles, Erika was learning the cost of elite sport. Training had always been exhausting, but now it carried with it the burden of expectation. Every session had to be perfect, every meet a demonstration that she deserved the praise being poured on her. There was no hiding anymore. Mistakes were dissected, off days scrutinized, and every performance became another headline. In public, she was confident and gracious, always thanking her supporters, always giving thoughtful answers. But in private, the exhaustion was relentless. She would come home after long competitions and collapse into bed, her body aching in ways cameras could never capture. There were nights she lay awake, replaying races in her mind, not reliving the victories but obsessing over the mistakes. With fame also came criticism. The same people who praised her were quick to question her when results didn't go as planned. Articles that once called her a rising star shifted into commentary about whether she could handle the pressure. Social media was worse, strangers picking apart her form, her appearance, her every decision. It was an uninvited chorus of voices that made it harder for her to hear her own. She tried to ignore it, tried to focus on her training, but sometimes the noise crept in. She was still young, still learning, and the loneliness of being in that spotlight was sharper than she ever admitted to anyone outside her closest circle. Then came the setbacks. Injuries are part of every athlete's story, but when Erika faced them, they felt like cruel interruptions of the dream she had worked so hard to build. A strained muscle, a recurring pain, the frustration of being told to rest when all she wanted was to train. Each one chipped away at her confidence. Watching others compete while she sat on the sidelines was a kind of torment. She doubted herself in those moments, wondered if she would come back stronger, or if the narrative that had been written about her had been premature. The mental battle was just as fierce as anything on the track. She had to learn patience, had to learn that resilience wasn't only about pushing forward, but about knowing when to step back and heal. And this resulted in a future she had always dreamed of. Erika's story was never one of surrender. Out of those low points came some of the highest achievements of her career. In 2024, at the World Athletics U20 Championships, she stood on the starting line carrying both the weight of her setbacks and the fire of her determination. The competition was fierce, the stakes enormous, and yet she ran with a clarity that only hardship could give. Crossing the line to claim the bronze medal was more than a podium finish. It was proof that she could stumble, fall, and still rise again. That bronze wasn't just for herself. It was for every doubt she had silenced, every injury she had fought through, every critic she had ignored. It was her reminder that pain and perseverance often sit on the same podium. That momentum carried into 2025, when Erika etched her name into the history of Italian athletics by becoming the national indoor champion. That victory was different from the bronze in many ways. At the World Championships, she had shown the world she belonged among the best of her age group. At the Italian Indoor Championships, she showed her country that she was no longer just a promise. She was a champion. The anthem, the cheers, the weight of the medal around her neck, it all crystallized into a single truth. Erika Saraceni was no longer rising. She had arrived.
Oh, wow! Oh, that could be huge! Oh, yes! That is absolutely superb!
Yet even with the glory, she understood that the story was never simple. Behind the podium shots and interviews, there would always be exhaustion, sacrifices, and moments of doubt. Fame, the big stages, the setbacks, all of them were woven into the same journey. Erika had learned that being a champion wasn't about never falling. It was about refusing to stay down. And as she stepped forward into the next chapter of her career, she carried not just medals, but the scars and lessons that would continue to define her as the fighter she had always been. The untold story. For the children who crowd around the edge of the track after races, holding out notebooks or small scraps of paper for an autograph, Erika Saraceni is more than just a name on a results sheet. To them, she is living proof that dreams born in small towns and humble beginnings can find their way onto the world's biggest stages. She doesn't take lightly the way their eyes light up when they see her, or the way young girls whisper to each other that they want to be just like Erika. For her, these moments carry more weight than medals, because they are reminders that her story has become bigger than herself. When she looks back on the path that brought her here, Erika sees more than podiums and press coverage. She remembers the sacrifices her family made, the early mornings when she ran until her legs burned, and the nights when exhaustion left her too tired to even speak. She remembers the injuries that forced her to pause and the doubts that whispered she might never return. All of it shaped her, but none of it defines her completely. She knows that beyond the stopwatch and the headlines, she is still the girl who once raced through her hometown streets, driven not by fame, but by the simple joy of running. Her journey has taught her that being an athlete is never just about the competition. It is about resilience in the quiet moments, the willingness to carry on when no one is watching, and the courage to embrace vulnerability. Erika has learned to see herself not only as a competitor, but as a person with the power to inspire, to show others that chasing dreams means embracing every setback and every scar along the way. She is proud of the medals, yes, but she is even prouder of the way she has grown into someone who refuses to let failure define her. Today, Erika Saraceni stands as both an idol and a role model, not because she is perfect, but because she is real. She has stumbled, she has doubted, she has fought her way back. Her story is untold, not because it has been hidden, but because so often the world only sees the victories and not the battles that came before them. Erika is not just an athlete, she is a fighter, a symbol of what it means to keep moving forward when everything seems set against you. And in that fight, she is redefining what it means to chase dreams, not as flawless victories, but as the relentless pursuit of becoming the best version of yourself, no matter the cost.